It's actually kind of funny because when I did that video back in the day, I never planned on meeting any of you guys. But see, now it's like the channels have gotten so much cooler. I'm literally talking to all the fighters in Lionheart instead
Yeah.
of just talking about them. I'm literally interviewing you guys, so it's really cool. Hey guys, in part two of my interview with James Brewster Thompson, we're going to talk all about Lionheart, the auditioning process, the experience, and so much more. Of course, Frank Dukes played a part in that film as fight choreographer and also helped out with the casting, so we're going to hear about that and so many other things. Anyway, make sure to check out part one of the interview I did with James, linked in the description below, and you find out more about his background in martial arts history. How did you get in that film? We got to talk all about the audition process, how you even found out about the audition. Let's
Yeah.
start with Lionheart at the very beginning.
Yeah. Well, I found out about the audition reading some of the papers that, the trade papers they have in LA. I
Hmm.
was reading the trades papers and they said that the audition was going to be down in LA at a certain location. So I went down there for the first audition and basically they were picking 15 fighters for that movie. If you saw the movie, they have 15.
Many times. Love that
Yeah,
movie.
right. And so they was trying to see who they wanted to be in there for those 15 fights.
Mhm.
Well, they chose me at the audition to be one of the fighters, but in the beginning of the movie. Now, if you watch that movie, Van Damme was beating people up easy in the first few fights. And as the
Sure.
fights went on throughout the movie, the fights got harder for him, all the way
Mhm.
to that last fight that was the hardest.
Who's gonna kill your ass, man?
All
Mhm.
right. So basically, I was more of an easy fight for him. And if you notice, Billy Blanks was off in that movie at the he was at
At the
the
very beginning, when
at
Van
the
Damme was
beginning,
escaping
escaping
from
from
the Legionnaires, yeah, so he
right.
didn't even have one of the official fights, just the
Yeah,
guy he fought,
yeah.
very beginning. Yeah.
And that was one of the 15 fights. But
Yeah,
it was
won the
but
15,
it, but
sure.
it was an easy fight. You noticed that. And
Hmm.
then when he got to America, that first fight underneath the bridge, when he jumped off the ship and swam ashore to New York, supposedly, uh, that's when he fought me at that underneath the bridge at that first fight to get some money so he could get to LA from New York because his brother was dying in that burn unit from a drug deal that went
Hmm.
south.
Yeah. So the audition process, let's talk about that because I believe there were multiple auditions. So the first audition you did, like who was there? I know it was at Frank Dukes' dojo.
Yeah, Frank Dukes was the one mainly putting his input in on who he wanted and thought could be a good person to have in the movie.
Mhm.
And so he liked me, and the way I impressed him at that audition was I'm a jump rope expert, so I'm known for taking jump rope to the extreme over the years. I have a Guinness Book of World Record in jumping rope with people hanging on me up to 400 and some pounds while jumping rope.
Yeah, that's
Well,
crazy.
three people. So, but anyway, I picked up somebody in the audience there at the audition, in that first audition, that was over 200 pounds. And I put this person on my shoulders and jump rope with them on the shoulders. And then I grabbed three people or two people and put them on me and jump rope. And then I did a little acting where I said something like, uh, don't mess with me. And I said, if you mess with me, they call me the Wish. I said, Wish. I said, the reason why they call me the Wish is because if I get my hands on you, you wish you were somewhere else, Chicago, Detroit, LA, anywhere except in these hands. And then so they liked all that and they liked the jump rope too, I think impressed them. So Frank came up to me afterwards, Dukes, and he said, man, we'll find something for you in this movie. I'm going to do all I can to make sure you get in this movie.
Oh,
He said,
nice.
and then he says, and maybe we can get you doing some jump rope and stuff like that in the movie too, you know.
Yeah,
And
sure.
he tried to get me to do some jump rope and stuff like that, but the director and Van Damme said no because they didn't want me to look too strong because the fights were easier in those first fights, and it wouldn't look like he could beat me if they made me look too good. I think that's what they
Yeah,
were
it makes sense because in the film, you were basically
a
in the
street
first
fighter
fight
with
under
not
the
that much
bridge.
experience. Yeah,
Joshua's there basically hosting fights, lower grade fights. Some of the people
yeah,
in the audience were probably even homeless. So they were lower tier fights.
right.
But so your character, just the way you look, right? Big,
Mhm.
tough, strong, could probably
Yeah,
just beat these guys out of just sheer strength
yeah,
without skill or technique.
right.
The funny thing is, James, when I first found out more about you, now I had seen and I still watch the movie all the time. So,
Hmm.
and I really like that fight scene.
Yeah,
But I did a video called Who Were the Fighters of Lionheart? So I had to look into all of the fighters. And
yeah.
then going into your background, I was very impressed. I'm like, it's almost like they wasted your talents in the film because of like your credentials, right? It's like, okay, this guy is just they could have just got any big guy throwing a couple haymakers and getting beat, but like, you always think, oh, if Lionheart were real, you would get really far, if not win the whole thing, in my opinion,
Yeah.
based on your like basically Olympic level judo and everything.
Mhm. But you know what else too? I was one day, all the people you saw in the background in that fight scene,
Mhm.
that some of them looked homeless and this and that. A lot of them were African Americans, if you noticed, in that group. And so basically, uh, during a break in filming, I was showing off by doing some push-ups on my thumbs. I did a extension push-ups on two thumbs, and I did a one hand, one thumb push-up, right?
Wow.
And so a lot of the people saw all of that, and they were some of them were a little ticked off because they thought they should have gave me more of a fight role or a tougher fight situation and let me do some stuff and punch back and get a few kicks in and this and that. But they didn't understand that the movie was written in a way where it was progressively tougher fights for Van Damme, and mine was supposed to be easy. So I wasn't supposed to get all this moves on him and everything. It wasn't written to do it that way.
The way it was structured, I mean, it worked perfect from like a dramatic perspective. You're
Mm-hmm.
this big guy. Van Damme's like average size at best.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone's going to bet on you, which they did in the movie. They just
Mm-hmm.
assume you're going to win, right? Just by the way you look compared to Van Damme.
I'm the only one betting on you. Don't let me down now. This is ours, my man. If you can beat this dude, it's going right here. Trust me, man.
But
Yeah.
then Van Damme impressing the hell out of Joshua with these fancy ass moves. So just from the dramatic perspective, it worked out great because Joshua's like, damn, I got to take this dude and bring him to Cynthia and all the people.
Yeah.
She's got the better fighters like Jeff Langton, for example.
Yeah.
Um, who I interviewed and met on this channel as well. It's actually kind of funny because when I did that video back in the day, I never planned on meeting any of you guys, but see now it's like the channels have gotten so much cooler. I'm literally talking to all the fighters in Lionheart instead
Yeah.
of just talking about them. I'm literally interviewing you guys, so it's really cool how
Yeah.
much the channel's evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and when I was doing those push-ups and stuff for the extras and everybody, Van Damme came up and he showed off a little bit with his kicks. He jumped up in the air and did this flying kick that he does, and he missed my face by a couple of inches and landed in front of me in that split that he does, the Chinese split from the side like
Oh yeah,
that.
sure.
And then he punched at my groin from that position, and by an inch or two from hitting me in the groins. And that was the way it went that day. But it was funny though, because all of the people said, "But I wonder, can he fight though?" And I said, "Well, if he got those kind of moves, I'm gonna give him credit for fighting."
Yeah, sure. Not a lot of people move like that.
Yeah, and that kick that he used to do, that spinning one up in the air like that, that's very good control. So I said, if he got that kind of control, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. That's what I told the guys when they were talking to me on the side. I said, yeah, I think we got to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. You saw the technique he had.
You know what's interesting? So, of course, that's his signature kick. He did that in No Retreat, No Surrender. He did that in Bloodsport. He did that in Kickboxer. And of course, in a lot of other movies, later on with Hard Target, he
Yeah,
did not do that kick in Lionheart for whatever reason. And I think it probably really wouldn't have matched the tone of the film. Like he does some pretty kicks in Lionheart,
yeah,
but I don't think that kick would have really matched the tone of that film. So they did. Of course, they're not going to keep every movie like super realistic, but they keep it realistic
yeah,
enough where I would have to guess I should ask Sheldon Lettich actually. It's like how come
yeah.
you guys didn't do that kick? Because that's like what he's known for, right? That's like his kick.
Hmm. In fact, I came down a second time for the second audition, and that was for the director.
Oh,
And
so Sheldon Lettich was there the second time.
Yeah, and they made a decision whether they still wanted you as one of the 15 fighters. But like I say, Frank Dukes had pushed me real good from
Yeah, that's cool.
that first audition. He was pretty cool. And then they they had us come down for a third audition. And the third
Well,
audition,
real quick, James, what did you have to do for the second audition? Did you do the same stuff you did with Frank in the first one, or did you do something different to try to impress Sheldon?
yeah, it was just something different. He wanted to take a look at me and talk to me in the whole 9 yards. And then he said, "Okay, I'll take him too." But still, it was a lot had to do with Frank Dukes
Oh yeah,
pushing the
sure.
whole situation for
He
the
had
fight.
some pull on that for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
he
he
was
had
a
some
fight
pull on.
choreographer. I don't know if he got writing credit. I'm sure a lot of his ideas ended up making it in the film, but
Yeah, and so the director said, "Yeah, I like him too." And so they said now he has to come back for a third audition, and Van Damme gets the final say so. And so we came back on that third audition. Van Damme talked to me and saw me, and he knew what I had done in the first two auditions. And he says, "I like you too." He said, "But one thing," he says, "you're about 220 pounds. You got potential to gain some weight, brother. I know that." He said, "Don't gain no weight before this movie, okay? We're going to start filming on this date and make sure you still stay at this weight, okay?" I said, "Yeah, don't worry about me, sir. I'll keep my weight down." And I kept it down like I had promised. Now he was
yeah,
right. I did have potential for gaining weight because I'm about 260 now, and I was 220 then. So that's 40 pounds I've gained since that movie.
yeah, sure. I mean, I think it still would have worked though, because if anything, you'd just be bigger and more of a threat on screen, right?
But at that time, I was pretty cut up too.
Mm.
Where I had pretty good body, maybe under 12% body fat, under 14% body fat. Now I'm probably at 20% body fat. Who knows?
Well, you
20.
did gain 40 pounds, like you said,
Yeah.
you know. So, so with Lionheart actually shooting the film, you only shot for one day, or was the shoot with you multiple days?
No, it was like 3 days.
Oh, it was 3 days. That's
Yeah, 2 or 3 days of filming, and then they had a few more days. It was to choreograph the fight scene, and Frank Dukes again. He choreographed all the fight techniques and stuff we had to do, and so uh, he was pretty sharp as far as knowledge goes on the stunt stuff and the choreographing the fight scenes, and
okay.
so
Did Muhammad Kisi help too? Because I heard he helped choreograph some of the fight scenes as well.
no, he didn't help with mine.
He didn't
That
help
was
with
all
yours.
Frank Dukes.
Now, did Frank Dukes have any ideas of like trying to incorporate some of your grappling? Because you were basically just the guy throwing, some haymakers, for example.
Well, he wanted me to pick up Van Damme and put him up over my head and hold him up underneath the bridge. But Van Damme said no. He wanted that. He said, "I think it'll look good if he picks you up with his strength and everything and kind of, do one of these numbers with your body, like an all-star wrestling or something." And Van Damme
You know
said,
what's interesting? So they did kind of utilize that when Van Damme fought the
the last guy.
Magic Schwartz. No, well, yeah, but Magic Schwartz in the racquetball court, the blonde dude, he was
Mm-hmm.
holding him up, against the wall. So they kind of
Yeah.
implemented that. But again, that was a fighter later
Yeah,
who
later.
obviously was a higher ranked fighter.
Yeah.
And then see the fight with you, because you were just some guy on the street, it would make sense that because I don't even think you hit Van Damme,
No, not once. That's
you
why
know?
some of the extras was kind of ticked off. And I said, "Fellas, this is supposed to be easy fight, and that's the way it's written."
Yeah.
And I said, "Now, if you guys ever write a movie and you want me to do more in the movie, then that's a whole different story." I said, "But since they're paying me to do it this way here today, we're gonna do it this way in the way they want it."
Yeah, and it's such a great fight scene that holds up to today because when I interviewed Frank Dukes, I had mentioned this specific fight, the one you and Van Damme were in, because
Mhm.
when I was in film school, I had an editing class, right?
Yeah.
And everybody had to bring in a scene from a film that they really liked, the way it was edited and cut, and
Mhm.
describe it and break it down. And literally, the scene you were in with Van Damme is the one that I was talking about in film school. So it's pretty funny.
Yep. Yeah.
That is literally this scene that I brought with me in film school at CSUN. We went to the same school, funny enough. But
Yeah.
and that's the one I dissected for my editing class because I loved it so much. So I just
Wow.
wanted to let you know, like that's how
That's
much I
awesome.
like that scene,
Thank
man.
you for sharing that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. By the way, that whole fight scene came from me talking to Sheldon and John Claude about the early Kumite matches, where they used to take place under a bridge in Chicago. It was the Dante Bridge. And that's where John Keon got the name, I believe, Count Dante.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you though, the movie was one of those movies where for some reason they like my fight scene a lot because one of my brothers live in Germany, and basically they was using that fight scene of mine to showcase the movie, to
Oh, and the
advertise the movie.
promos and trailers.
Yeah. And so I thought that my fight scene wasn't the best in that movie by no stretch of the imagination. But for some reason, they liked the fight scene and used it in the promoting of the movie.
Yeah, that's great exposure for you. So the question, did that open doors like after Lionheart? I mean, being in a big movie, obviously theatrical movie, regardless of the part, and you had some pretty good screen time. I
Yeah.
would think that because that happened to Jeff Langton too, for example. All he did
Mhm.
was throw a kick. Van Damme punches him in the ball, so he didn't even get a hit on Van Damme either, and his scene was even shorter than yours.
Yeah.
But it got him attention,
Yeah.
right? So what happened with the acting after Lionheart?
Well, I'll be honest with you. A lot of times when you do a movie, it depends on where you live at too, and how many auditions you go to. Like I said, I was with my Gemini personality, I was into too many things, to be honest with you. I was, training for different activities like the judo. I was trying to get to world championships and Olympics and all that. I fought in 2 world championships for judo, and I fought in 3 world championships for sumo wrestling. So I had all these other things I wanted to do,
Mhm.
and I know why I did that. To be honest with you, I felt like if you do 3 or 4 things or 5 things, you can't fail in life. You're going to succeed at something.
One of
And
those should pay off, sure.
and so a lot of people don't take that route. A lot of people say, I'm going to be tunnel vision and I'm going to stay with just karate. I'm going to stay with just
All eggs in
judo.
one basket, sure.
All eggs in one basket. I never could do that for some reason. Now, I wished I could have at times, I wished I could have had a Bobby Fischer type attitude where you're a chess master, where you concentrate in chess only. That's your life. That's everything. I couldn't do that. Now, I don't know. When you were coming up, could you put it all in
I
one
mean,
basket?
there's pros and cons to everything. I mean, I get what you're saying, where you do want kind of like multiple things going because,
Mhm.
one or two could really work out for you. But then, I could understand the tunnel vision, man. Like, but if that doesn't work out, you're kind of screwed. It's
Mhm.
like, well, I poured everything in that and that didn't work out. What I got now?
Mhm.
Nothing.
And then a
So
lot of people, even like Langston, I'm sure Langston lived in the LA area where he could get to auditions quicker
yeah,
and
yeah, Jeff
meet the
Langton, man,
contact.
he did live down there. I think
Mhm.
he got, he got noticed from that, and I think he did some films for, I believe, Imperial Entertainment, or was it PM Entertainment? I get those two mixed up. But it's hard. It's a struggle for anybody because the thing with acting, it's like even if you do get a movie or a TV show,
Mhm.
once that's over, it's almost like you're always looking for another job, you
Yeah.
know? You're always looking for another job. I mean, the statistic, I believe, and it might have changed now, 90% of actors make less than $5,000 a year.
Yeah. I was told
So
2,000.
basically they're doing other stuff and
Yeah.
getting 1 or 2 gigs once in a while
Yeah.
that gives them a couple grand.
Yeah. Well, the common joke in Hollywood, and I was a SAG actor, AFTRA, and all that stuff. They say 90%, like you say, 90% of the people. Well, they were telling me 98%, but
It
90,
might be that high,
we'll
man.
say, we'll say 90.
Okay.
90% of the actors, they have to have another job. And they told me that they're gonna make 2,000 or less a year that's in SAG in that 98%. And so they say that's why you see in Hollywood when people say I'm an actor or actress, people say, what other job do you do? because they automatically assume that you're in that 98% because that 2% or that 10%, they make all the money. They're the Tom Cruises, the Denzel Washingtons,
Mhm.
all them are making the money. That 90% or 98%, you know, you doing it part-time and
Yeah.
hoping that you get a break.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah,
I
I mean
did,
they'll call themselves actors. I mean, honestly,
yeah.
aspiring actors is really the correct
Hmm.
term because yeah, it's a tough world. I mean, I was out there for a while doing a bunch of
Yeah.
auditions and other stuff, but
Hmm.
plus the cost of living down there is so expensive. So that's the funny thing. It's like a lot of times, not necessarily SAG jobs because you have minimums, but
Yeah.
there'll be like a lot of smaller independent films that people would literally work on for nothing, just
Yeah.
for the experience and the opportunity. So
Yeah.
they'll work on these for nothing. Meanwhile, they're living in a place that it has extreme high cost of living.
Yeah. That's true.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I give anybody credit who does break through because
Mhm.
those statistics, the numbers are not in your favor in anybody's favor.
Although he has had several roles in action films, James feels his time is better spent traveling around the country, inspiring kids to live a healthy life.
So when I come in there and jump rope with 3 people on me or do push-ups on one thumb, hopefully they'll look at those feats of strength and say anything is possible and you can do it drug-free. If I can just get 1 or 2 people never to try drugs because of my message, then I think the society on the whole will be a better place for all of us to live.
And then you see a lot of people, and I give them credit and respect. Even Steve Harvey, I did one of Steve Harvey's talk shows where he had me jump rope, and if you were the best specialty act for that particular episode, you won $10,000. So on that show that he had, Steve Harvey's Big Challenge, I won $10,000 as the best specialty act with the jump rope act, right?
Nice.
And when I talked to Steve Harvey, I heard from him that basically he was living out of his car from when he was 30 years old to 33 years old. He
Wow.
spent 3 years living out of his car. So I'm saying, that's what a lot of actors are willing to do when they go to LA. And I wasn't willing to do that. I was more conservative when it came to that type of investment in acting. But a lot of them will live out their cars, do whatever it takes to make it. And that's the tunnel vision that I'm talking about. And I don't take nothing away from those people, but I couldn't do that. I had to be into everything.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard living out of the car, man. But I've interviewed so many people, like Jeff Langton lived in his car. Muhammad Kisi and Van Damme, I heard, lived in their car.
That many people lived in their car?
Even Master Amon Santo, the capoeira master, for in Only the Strong with Mark Dacascos, he
Yeah,
was his instructor in real life and also in the movie, another Sheldon Lettich movie, by the way. But when he first went to LA, because he was in New York. I mean, he's from Brazil, but then he went to New York, too cold. Then he
yeah,
went to LA, and he was really trying to spread capoeira. But yeah, he said he lived in his car for months, and he wasn't even like an aspiring actor or
yeah.
anything. He's just a martial artist trying to
Mhm.
spread that, and open a school, which he eventually did. A very nice school he's got now. For more about Mastro Monsanto, make sure to check out the full interview I did with them, linked in the description below, or you could just click it right here. Click it right here, guys. Check that video out.